Coming to your love and direct from Now Valley Entertainment.
What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing back at you again. Alright, so this is going to be my last commentary about the fight between Book and Spence before the fight actually happens. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about Book versus Canelo. Alright, so the Spence fight. So now, this fight is getting a lot of airtime. A lot of people talking about this fight. It's like the hot topic right now on YouTube. You got all these people on YouTube talking about the fight and, making their predictions and making their opinions known. Now, the funny thing is this: all of the people, people like Dante and Dante's Boxing Nation, 78 Sports TV, Boxing Ego, Black Fight Fan. All of these guys that's on YouTube, making, a lot of these guys have their program on YouTube. They've been on YouTube for a while now. Most of these guys and a lot of the casual fans are picking Spence to win this fight. Now, funny thing about that is this: those are the very same guys who picked Porter, Sean Porter that is, to beat Book in that fight. You know what I mean? The very same guys and this casual fans, all these guys that picked Porter to beat Book are now picking Spence to beat Book. So it seems like some people gotta learn the hard way and some people never learn at all. Okay, you'd think that, after Book proved them wrong once, they would learn their lesson and not be so gung ho about picking Spence to beat Book. And we gotta keep in mind something else as well. Book came from across the pond, as they say, came to America and beat a champion. Okay, I mean, Sean Porter was the champion. Okay, so Book he didn't just beat anybody. Okay, he came across and took the championship. So a lot of these guys never expected that to happen. They all thought that because Sean Porter at the time was in a role. He was the next, he was the mini Mike Tyson as they used to call him back then. And none of these guys thought that Book had the skills to actually beat him. And as history showed, they were all wrong. So history is going to show again that they're all wrong about Spence because again we have to understand that Sean Porter was an accomplished fighter. Okay, he had beaten some good people in the welterweight division, yet still Book came over here and beat him. So again, much more accomplished than Errol Spence. So I just can't understand why these people are picking Spence to beat Book. When Sean Porter was a much more accomplished fighter, and at the time he was a champion. And they picked him against Book, and Book beat him. And now they're picking Spence, who is not really an accomplished champion. He's just a contender, a prospect. A good one, but nonetheless still a prospect. So I'm at a loss to see why they're so gung ho on Spence, thinking that Spence would beat Book when there's really actually no reason for them to really think that. But again, it's a mystery to me, but it is what it is. They're all going for Spence. I guess it's the USA versus anybody else mentality. Okay, but I'm a boxing fan, so I don't really go by that. I go by boxing skills. Okay, I'm not picking someone because they're American and I'm American, and whatever. I'm picking them based on skills. In this fight, we're gonna see who has the better skills. And we can look at it and and see. And a lot of these guys are always saying, "Oh well, the only fighter on Book's record is Porter," and they kind of like try to delegitimize his record by saying he only has Porter on his record as if Porter is nobody. As if Porter wasn't a champion. As if Porter wasn't the mini Mike Tyson. He was all that before Book beat him, but after Book beat him, he wasn't all that. But when you hear people say that, when people say, well, Book only has Porter and Triple G on his record, then when you hear them say that, they don't really know what they're talking about. And the reason for that is because they haven't really watched Book's fights, because he doesn't just only have Porter on his record and Triple G. He has another guy called, you have a couple of guys, but there's another one that stands out, that's Lovemore NDOU. Now, a lot of people probably won't know who Lovemore NDOU is, or NDOU, depending on how you pronounce it. But he was a two-time champion that fought Canelo Alvarez, took him the distance, okay, and he fought Book and took Book the distance. Now, Lovemore NDOU is LOVEMORE NDOU. Look him up. I'm going to leave a link down here to both the fights with him and Canelo and him and Book, and you can judge for yourself and see who put up a better fight against NDOU, Canelo or Book, which is going to lead us into the Canelo versus Book discussion. So, Lovemore NDOU, tough guy, fought Canelo for Canelo's 38th fight. Put up a tough fight against Canelo, finished strong against Canelo. Now, Canelo at the time, as usual, Canelo was, outweighed him significantly, like he do most of his opponents. Like he outweighed him like about 15 pounds or more, although the fight was supposed to be welterweight, 154, I think. But anyway, Canelo looked big, much bigger than NDOU in that fight. But nonetheless, NDOU finished very strong in that fight against Canelo. 6 months later, NDOU fought Book for Book's 24th fight. Okay, so he fought Canelo for Canelo's 38th fight, and he fought Book for Book's 24th fight. And in that fight, Book finished very strong against NDOU. Almost knocked him out. NDOU barely made it the distance against Book, but he finished strong against Canelo. So, that's something you can compare and see the difference between how Canelo fights, and, you can kind of gauge where Canelo is and where Book is at that point in his 24th fight as opposed to Canelo's 38th fight, okay? A lot of people don't realize that Book is a lot stronger than people give him credit for, and Porter found it out, and Porter will tell you that himself. Book is a very strong fighter, probably stronger than Canelo, okay? And, people might not believe that, but, you have to know a little bit about boxing to understand these type of things. Just watch the fight. Like I said, the link it's going to be down below. You can go in and watch the Lovemore NDOU against Canelo and the Lovemore NDOU against Book, and you see which one did better against NDOU. A tough fighter. Okay, so all this talk about Book only having Porter on his record, it's just talk. These people don't know what they're talking about, because they're not watching these fights. They're just making up their opinions based on emotion, not really real analysis. And the thing about a lot of these guys on YouTube, some of these guys, especially some of the more elite ones like 78 Sports, Boxing Eagle, Dante, and these guys like that, these guys, they're around these fighters all the time. They go to these fights. They go to visit these guys in their house. They interview them. So they become close to the fighters, and they kind of lose their objectivity. They don't want to say certain things now because they might lose their access that they're getting, They kind of shade their commentary, their comments, and their analysis. They have to think about how the fighters might feel because they're close to them. Me, and other guys like me on YouTube, we're not close to these fighters. We don't really know them personally, so we kind of, a little bit more objective in our analysis because we don't really know them personally. That's also there. So it is what it is. So again, let's talk about the Spence and Book fight now. Spence is a pretty good fighter, okay, but at the end of the day, we have to admit to ourselves that he hasn't really accomplished much in boxing at this point in his career. Now, he might be the next best thing since sliced bread, but we don't really know that yet, okay? We can't really judge that based on the fights that he's had so far. So we have to see him fight some more people first. I would love to see him fight Porter. I would love to see him fight eventually Thurman, Pacquiao, maybe some of the top 10 guys like Peterson, and guys like that, Saddam Ali, some other guys in the division, okay? But we haven't seen that. So we have to judge by the fighters he has fought so far. And so based on that, and what I've seen, not just the fighters he has fought, but the way he has fought them. Now, he was impressive against Algeria and Bundu, but again, it was a situation where these guys were bringing a knife to a gunfight because basically he had more tools than both of these guys. He was bigger, stronger, and so he just overwhelmed them with his strength and his power. When I say power, I'm speaking relatively because power compared to their power. So we can't really judge how good he is, but we can make some assessments. And based on those guys and what I've seen done in other fights, I think that he's levels below the capability or the skills of a Kell Brook. All right, and so it is what it is. So all this talk about gym and sparring, and so we have to resort to sparring to basically pad his record, to make him look more than what he actually is. But sparring and fighting is two different things. Actually, what's in the gym is supposed to stay in the gym, but it is what it is. So people are talking about his sparring as if it was a part of his record in the ring. I mean, it's ridiculous. But anyway, again, so there's a lot of hype going on basically, and I'm not saying that to throw in a shade on Spence because I like Spence, but we have to call it like we see it. So let's talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages. Like for example, speed. That we have to give the advantage to Kell Brook. I think he's faster than Errol Spence, and I think that's going to show in the fight. Experience. We have to throw that to Kell Brook. He has fought better fighters over a longer period of time, so he has the experience. Strength. Spence is a young, strong kid, but again, I think Kell Brook is stronger than he is, and people might not know that, might not see that, but like I said, Brook has deceptive strength, and he showed that against Porter, and against LOVEMORE NDOU, and against Triple G as well. Power. Again, the edge got to go to Brook. See, when we talk about power, displaying power against people who can't really compete with you in power is one thing, but displaying power against somebody else who have an equivalent amount of power is a different thing. Okay, so we're gonna see that this power that they're talking about that Spence has, we're not going to see that. We're going to see him try to display that power against Brook, but then he's going to get power for power. So his power won't seem so overwhelming as it did against smaller guys like Bundu and Algeria and the other guys that he fought before that. Like a lot of these cab drivers that he's been fighting in the welterweight. Not all of them, but most of them. So the one advantage that he does have is the height. So Spence is a little bit taller than Brook, but then again, Triple G was taller than Brook. I don't think that's going to be a decisive factor. It's not like he's much taller; he's a little bit taller, so that won't be too much of a disadvantage for Brook. Ring generalship, again, we have to give the edge to Brook. I mean, he's a good mover in the ring. He's not the type of guy who runs around in the ring. He's not like, say, Erislandy Lara. He's not like Erislandy Lara. He doesn't run like Lara. Like Lara is like a. All right, I'm gonna give you two comparisons to Brook in terms of movement in the ring. Now, when he's in the ring moving, he moves. He has an effective movement. In other words, he moves just enough to make you miss, and be in position to counter. He doesn't really run around the ring like, say, he doesn't really dance a lot. He doesn't move a lot. Now, a good mover in the ring is Jacobs, like when he was in the Triple G fight. You see Jacobs dancing around the ring. He's a good mover in the ring in terms of dancing. Now, even though he moves more than Brook, he's not like Lara. Lara is like a damn Usain Bolt in the ring. You have to be a damn. You have to be a track star to catch up to him. I mean, you throw one punch at Lara and he dances around the ring 3 or 4 times before he gets back in range to where you can throw another punch. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, this is why he lost against Canelo, even though he might have been he might have won the fight technically, so to speak, but just all this running around the ring, it's not effective, first of all, and it doesn't show you any aggression, okay? It makes it look like you're running away from the fight. So he needs to cut back on all that running around the ring, all that movement. It doesn't really do him any good. And it doesn't look good to the judges or, to the fans either. So, he runs too much, okay? Or he moves too much, okay? So Book doesn't really move like that. He's a guy that just moves just enough to where he can get out of the way of punches, but not too much to where he's not in position to punch. Okay, and this is what you call effective movement. So we see that the edge in movement is gonna go, in terms of ring generalship, it's gonna go to Book again. When we look at all of this, again, we see that Spence is at a disadvantage. Now we can talk about hunger. Okay, who wants it more? Well, I think both of these guys want it probably equally as much. Again, Spence might be a little bit hungry because he's never been a champion, so he's gonna be really be hungry for this fight. I mean, I think Book is also hungry in the sense that he wants to prove how good he is. We can more or less say that they're equally hungry, but maybe Spence is a little bit more hungry. Okay, and so we'll give him the edge in that. But again, like I said, when we add everything all up together, we see that almost at every level, Book, has the advantage. Okay, he's a champion, which is another edge. Experience and all of that add up together. So I don't really see why people think that Spence is gonna beat Book. If you look at everything as you should, most of the advantages go to Book. It shouldn't be a tough fight for Book. I think he should win this fight. If Spence goes in there and make this a tough fight for Book, for me to rate Spence as being a good fighter, he doesn't even have to win this fight. He just has to put up a tough fight. If he put up a tough fight, if he make this fight tough for Book, that's enough for me to say, okay, Spence is the real deal. Because by all measurements, he should not win this fight, or it should even be a tough fight for Book. That's the way I see it. I don't see it as being a tough fight for Book. If Spence make this fight a tough fight, not even winning the fight, just make it a tough fight for Book, then he's almost as good as people say he is. Okay, because this fight for Book should not be a tough fight at all. He should be able to win this fight relatively easy. So if Spence goes in there and make it tough, then we gotta give him some props. He doesn't have to win to get props from me. Okay, all you have to do is make it a tough fight. He'll get his props from me because it shouldn't be a tough fight for Book. Okay, so again, I'm thinking that Spence is gonna get stopped, and so that's another thing. If Spence even goes the distance, that's enough. To me, that's enough to give him his props. Okay, he doesn't even have to, make it so much of a tough fight, but just last the whole 12 rounds. If he can last the whole 12 rounds against Book, then he's a good fighter. As far as I'm concerned, he's gonna get some props. Okay, and because he's definitely gonna get schooled and get a lot of experience. So that's what I see. I'm calling it ninth round stoppage for Book. That's how I see it. Okay. All right. Let's talk about Canelo and Book. I think that Book will beat Canelo in a tough battle. Okay, it will be a war, but I think Book could come out ahead for a lot of reasons. Okay, one, I think his hand speed and his timing might be a little better than Canelo. I mean, Canelo got the better upper body movement. Okay, I love the way Canelo moves. Upper body movement. I mean, he learned. It looked like he gained a lot of experience, and he's been training very well. I see he's doing a lot of upper body movements, slipping punches. I mean, I even see him slipping body punches, which is great. I mean, I love that, man. Man is, he's slipping, against Angulo, he was slipping body. He was standing right in front of Angulo and slipping body punches and head punches and, his hands down at his waist. And, and not only just slipping body punches, but rolling with punches. A punch will hit you, but he's rolling with the punch. And so the effect of the punch is gone. So all of these things Canelo has been very good at lately. But then again, he's good at that against Angulo and against guys like that who are not really, known for really fast hands, and they got a little power, but not they're not as quick, not as good timing as Canelo or Brook, and so it's not difficult to do that against guys like that if you know what you're doing. I gotta give him his props. He's doing the right things in there in terms of body movement, upper body movement, and the like. Against Brook, I don't think it'll be that he'll be able to do that. Okay, I think Brook is a sharpshooter, and Brook will pick him off if he tries any of that stuff. I mean, his upper body movement is gonna help him, but I don't think it's gonna help him as much as it does against other fighters because Brook is a little bit has fast hands, good jab, good movement, and that's the advantage he has against Canelo. He has better movement than Canelo because Canelo is not really a mover per se. He doesn't really move his feet too much, which would be a big disadvantage against a guy like Brook. So I see a fight. I think it'll be a great fight between Canelo and Brook, but I'd have to give Brook a slight edge against Canelo. His power, his speed, his timing, and his movement would be a problem for Canelo, just like Lara was. But I think he'd be more effective offensively than Lara was. Okay, because he's not gonna run it from Canelo. He's gonna stand there and give it to Canelo just like he did against Triple G. The only difference is that he's bigger than Canelo, as opposed to being smaller than Triple G. And I think that power wise, I don't think Canelo's power is has more power than Brook. I think that Canelo sits on his punches more than Brook. So it might seem like he has more power, but it's just because he sits on his punches more. He commits more. Brook is usually punching while he's moving. Now, a lot of people are taking the wrong lesson from the Canelo Chavez fight. They say, oh, Canelo went there, he did it to. Yeah, but again, I'm letting people know that Chavez cannot box. Okay, people have to know this. Okay, the only surprise I got from that fight between Chavez and Canelo was that Canelo didn't knock him out. Okay, and he should have knocked him out. So that's the lesson people should take from the fight. He should have knocked him out, but he couldn't. He landed everything but the kitchen sink, and he still couldn't knock out Chavez, which shows that his power again is not as overwhelming as people might think it is. Okay, it depends on who he's fighting. And the reason again why I don't just pick things out of the air and say it for no reason. The reason I'm saying that Chavez cannot box is because we saw the same fight that we saw with Canelo. We saw the same fight with Chavez against Sergio Martinez, another boxer, but probably a better boxer than Canelo in terms of movement, and because he's a mover, not just a boxer. He moves. And so he did the same thing to Chavez, outboxed him for 12 rounds. He got knocked down once, but he outboxed Canelo for 12 rounds, made Canelo look very foolish. Canelo was gun shy, just like he was against Canelo, because every time he tried to throw a punch, he'd get countered. And so he just followed the guy around the ring and just get beat up. When I saw that fight, I said, this guy can't box. So when the fight was announced with Canelo, I already knew what the end result was going to be. The only difference, like I said, is I thought Canelo was going to knock him out because Canelo seemed to be a stronger puncher than Martinez. So I was expecting to knock him out. And by right, he should have knocked him out. But again, that kid can take a punch. And again, Chavez, that is, he can take a punch. And also, like I said, Canelo is not as powerful a puncher as people make him out to be. He has power, but it's not overwhelming. It's no more. He doesn't have any more power than say Brook. Him and Brook would be a great fight. Much better fight than him and Triple G, because again, I think Triple G is gonna knock him out because I don't think he's as strong as Brook. I don't think his timing is as good as Brook, and I don't think the style that he has, while effective against other fighters, I don't think it's gonna work as well against Triple G, because Triple G can take a punch. He can take a hell of a shot, and so can Brook. So again, I would love to see a fight between Canelo and Brook sometime in the near future. I think that after Triple G beats Canelo is still in one piece after the Triple G beat him, then I think that he can do a comeback fight, and a good comeback fight would be against Brook, I think. Okay, maybe one fight before that to tune up, and then fight Brook. That would be a great match after he gets destroyed by Triple G, which is what I think is going to happen. I think Triple G is going to knock him out. I don't think he's going to be power is going to be enough to overwhelm Triple G. I mean, he might give Triple G a little problem with his hand speed for a little while, but eventually I think Triple G is gonna catch up to him, and he's just too big for him. I think although Canelo is a stocky, thick kind of guy, but I mean, Triple G is gonna come to this fight ready to do some damage, and I think he's gonna hurt Canelo. If Canelo is in one piece after that fight, a great fight for him would be booked sometime in the near future, and I'd love to see that. But in that fight, it'll be a tough fight, close fight, and it'll probably go the distance. That fight, I think that Book would pull it off, and I think he would beat Canelo in a close fight, tough fight. That's all I have for now. This is TBE signing off. See you on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. And for those people who want to donate, go ahead and donate. I have my own website now, tbeboxing.com. Go and check it out. There's a donate button there as well. Donate, subscribe to our YouTube channel, TBE. See you on the next one.